Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm taking you to the Master League, where a trainer is breaking out their SHUNDO extra small Meloetta to hyper beam everything in its path. Now these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Eloo, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now today's team features that extra small SHUNDO Meloetta as the lead, with Reshiram and Kyurem White in the back. So basically, Meloetta double Reshiram. Now, it goes without saying, this is definitely more of a team for fun than for climbing, but I'm very excited to get to watch some Hyper Beams land. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, Meloetta picks up a tricky lead leading into Lunala. Opponent actually save switches out of the matchup, and they're going to save switch into Reshiram. And right off the bat, what happened to the Reshiram attack animation? From the last time Master League was out until now, it appears they updated the Reshiram attack animation, and I've got to say, I think I preferred the old one. Opponent goes for the crunch, and unfortunately they do get lucky as they do get the crunch debuff. Suddenly, Reshiram taking quite a significant amount of damage. Crunch lands, it gets the debuff as well, but unfortunately is not going to be enough to secure the KO. Opponent will take the knockout with crunch, and now in comes Meloetta to go for confusion down. Meloetta exits up a decent amount of energy, and in comes Xerneas. Normally, Xerneas does not have to fear charge stacks from Meloetta, and Meloetta's going for it, charging up the Hyper Beam. Do they respect it? They do not. There's the screenshot and the one-hit KO. In comes Kyurem. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We see a very familiar matchup in game number 2 as Meloetta once again sees Xerneas. The last Xerneas that saw Meloetta got one shot by a Hyper Beam, so I'm hoping that history gets to repeat itself. Xerneas is going to strike first, connecting with the Moonblast. No attack debuff comes through, and Meloetta's going for it. Charging up the Hyper Beam. Can we go 2 for 2? Hyper Beam takes the knockout, and down goes Xerneas. In comes Reshiram, going to save that Meloetta for later and pivot into the mirror. Opponent does farm up to a potential Stone Edge, so we will see a shield come up. The opponent only going to have crunch though. Thankfully this time, no crunch debuff comes through. The opponent is not quite in a range where crunch will take the knockout, but it will put them pretty low. They're going to no shield, they will survive, and they're going to get a second crunch. They're always going to be pivoting out here and sending in whatever they have in the back, and it's going to be Zekrom. Even with the crunch debuff, Zekrom fails to get that farm down, and crunch is actually reached on damage registration error. Now it's going to be Kyurem versus Zekrom, but Zekrom has an energy head start, but what a catch. Able to save that Kyurem, catch the crunch onto the Meloetta, and now this game is probably going to end in a win. Kyurem's going to ramp up the pressure as it fires off Fusion Flare. Opponent has to put up the final shield. If they let this go, they're going to have no health remaining on any of their Pokemon. Kyurem going to match shields. Does Zekrom get the crunch debuff? They do. What is going on with the crunch debuffs? But Kyurem just does not care. Crunch debuff or not, gets the full farm down, and this is massive overkill. A fully charged Ice Burn onto the 1 HP Reshiram, and that's going to be a win. We move to game number 3, picking up a very tough lead, leading Meloetta into Lunala. Last time, the opponent switched out of this lead matchup, but this Lunala has realized that they are a complete wall to energy from Meloetta. Meloetta's best play is just to absorb a Moonblast and then look to pivot out. Moonblast is going to land. There's actually a simultaneous switch, Reshiram into Palkia. Because of Palkia's pacing, Reshiram is going to make the crunch one turn before the Spatial Rend is available. Crunch is going to land. Palkia overfarms quite significantly, and for Reshiram, this is a pretty easy no-shield. Palkia ends up going for an Aqua Tail bait, and that's going to cost them. Now they have to fire off all of their energy, and this is just going to give more farm to that Meloetta. No, it's actually the Kyurem that takes the energy head start. Meloetta still has all the energy stored in the back. Back in comes Lunala, and oh my goodness, what a catch and sneak onto Meloetta. This should be the Shadow Ball. Meloetta is going to be resisting that. In the back, opponent has a Veltal. Veltal's not going to like what comes next. Meloetta lands the Hyper Beam, big damage, and back in comes Kyurem. Kyurem will fire off the Fusion Flare right before the Oblivion Wing is available. Fusion Flare is shielded. Veltal will get to boost up its defense, but all that's going to do is just give extra farm over to the Kyurem. Oblivion Wing will be shielded. Kyurem now gets a ton of farm, and Kyurem is just too far ahead. Back in comes Lunala, but the damage is already done. What can Lunala possibly do? They don't have any energy. It was caught onto the Meloetta, and that is a charge attack priority tie win by the Kyurem. Kyurem just slamming the door as Fusion Flare knocks out Lunala and takes the win. We move to the next match, Meloetta versus Zacian. Now this is a truly bad lead. Unfortunately tries to switch out, accidentally overtaps, and save switches into the Reshiram. Reshiram is realistically the only Zacian counter on this team. Zacian grabs a shield with close combat, in comes Palkia, and being down a shield is very rough as Reshiram. That's where the overtap into firing off the confusion at the start is so bad, because that's what allowed the Zacian to outpace the Reshiram. Reshiram gonna fire off back-to-back crunches at this Palkia. Palkia tanks one, ends up shielding one as well, but unfortunately, switch advantage was not won. Aqua Tail is gonna land. There's Aqua Tail number 2 and a catch onto the Kyurem, so preserving that low HP Reshiram, but now the opponent just gets to send in their final Pokemon, and it's Lunala. Unfortunately, Lunala's pacing is just simply too good. The Kyurem did not get any energy head start. It didn't get a sneak when it caught. And that means that even with a bait, Kyurem should get outpaced here by the Lunala by one singular turn. Fusion Flare does get the shield. Kyurem gonna reach for the Ice Burn, but one turn short. As predicted, Lunala makes the Shadow Ball, takes the knockout, and unfortunately, there's just nothing that Meloetta can do. Meloetta, unable to damage Lunala, it's unable to damage the Zacian as well. Unfortunately, there's just no way out. They fire off the Moonblast, there's the pivot into Zacian. Only one thing left to do, see how much damage a resisted Hyper Beam does to Zacian Crown Form. And that does do a massive amount of damage. There's a pivot into Reshiram, Reshiram unable to make the Fusion Flare. This game was over for a while, but I do respect staying in the battle just long enough to see how much damage a resisted Hyper Beam would do to Zacian Crown Form. We move to the next match. Meloetta no longer in the rain, but unfortunately still leading into Zacian. Immediate safe switch into Reshiram, no confusion overtap this time. Reshiram will outpace, but overfarms by 1 to CMP tie the Zacian. This means that Reshiram is guaranteed to get its shield back. Close combat would not have taken the knockout, but Reshiram investing in its HP and getting a shield back from the Zacian. Zacian pivots out and in comes Kyogre. This is a Shundo Kyogre as well. What a flex from the opponent. Unfortunately for Reshiram, Crunch is not going to do much here. Crunch lands, Kyogre more than happy to take that damage, and there's a switch and a catch onto the Kyurem. Kyurem able to absorb Origin Pulse, but that is just such an efficient attack. Origin Pulse hits incredibly hard, and Kyurem fails to farm down and is forced to fire off the Fusion Flare to prevent the Avalanche from being launched by Kyogre. Unfortunately, Kyurem took a lot of damage, and Kyurem does not have a lot to show for it. It doesn't have a lot of energy. Opponent sends in their own Kyurem. Fusion Flare is reached. If they're counting, they know this is not enough energy to make it to an Ice Burn. But they do end up putting up the shield. Maybe this is the opportunity that's needed to win this game. In comes Meloetta, opponent farms up a ton, and they get a catch and sneak onto the Zacian. However, all is not lost, because this Psyshock damage now means the Zacian is going to be in Fusion Flare range. Back in comes the Reshiram. Reshiram launches Fusion Flare. This will be picking up the one-hit knockout, and all they have left in the back is their own Kyurem. No shield comes through. Opponent highly likely to go for the Fusion Flare. They do. That's double resisted. That's not going to do much. They do get the farm down. Back in comes Meloetta. Meloetta is exceedingly bulky. Shield does come up. Will they go for the Ice Burn? They do go for the Ice Burn. Ice Burn does not get the debuff. Meloetta gets the confusion down. And somehow, against all odds, this team beats a Zacian lead. Picking up a pretty decent lead in the next match, Meloetta into Kyogre. I do hope that Kyogre tries to disrespect the Hyper Beam, but no, they're going to pivot out and safe switch into Zacian. Zacian going to be answered with the Reshiram. Reshiram overfarming a ton of energy, waiting for the Zacian to fire off Close Combat. Close Combat honestly does not do a lot to Reshiram. Reshiram more than happy to absorb that Close Combat, fire off the Fusion Flare, but does end up losing charge attack priority. This means that the opponent at the very least is able to generate a shield advantage out of the mid game, and that is usually pretty good for them. Undercharge on the Fusion Flare, shield comes up from the opponent, and to me that's a very big surprise. They were able to generate an advantage out of the mid game, and now they're just going to end up losing switch. They farm up, they go for a catch onto the Kyogre. I guess they saved the Zacian, but I still don't think this is going to work out the way they were hoping. I don't know what was going on in that mid game, if they were lagging, if they ended up turn waiting for some reason. They get the catch, so it didn't look like they were lagging, but they ended up missing a ton of fast moves. Realistically, Zacian cannot win the Reshiram 2s, so more often than not, double shielding is not going to end up working out super well. Kyurem does exit with a ton of energy. If the opponent sends back in the Zacian, then Zacian is going to get shredded by a Fusion Flare. They send in Xerneas. They try and go for a peekaboo play, hoping to catch an Ice Burn, but instead they're just getting knocked out by the Fusion Flare. Now in comes Meloetta, and it's Hyper Beam time. No Protect Shields left for the opponent. This is guaranteed to land. Hyper Beam connects. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Picking up a pretty neutral lead in the next match, Meloetta into Reshiram. Reshiram gonna have a pacing advantage here, gonna bank a Psyshock and then save switch into the mirror. The opponent has farmed up easily enough energy for a Draco Meteor. Shield does come up, and it's not a Draco Meteor, but it is a Stone Edge. That would be a pretty big problem. Opponent able to make a nice catch. They're able to save Reshiram and catch the Crunch onto Palkia. No Crunch debuff this time, but Reshiram is rapidly approaching Crunch number 2. Palkia ends up bailing here. They only go for the Aqua Tail, and that's just simply not going to cut it. Reshiram able to hang on, fire off another Crunch, and this Crunch will be getting the Palkia very low. In comes Kyurem White, able to snipe down the Palkia before a charge attack is available, and in the back is Xerneas. This is definitely not what you want to see when you have a Kyurem White. Reshiram has a significantly better matchup here because Reshiram is only taking neutral, but Kyurem is taking big super effective damage. Kyurem forced a no shield as it's going to get knocked out by the close combat. In comes Meloetta, and there's going to be the pivot back into Reshiram. Reshiram did store a decent amount of energy from earlier, but they've already taken quite a lot of damage. Psyshock will be shielded. Meloetta reaching for Psyshock number 2, but can't quite get there. The biggest advantage Meloetta has in this endgame is it is still incredibly healthy. Reshiram will make a second Fusion Flare, but Meloetta is just simply not going to care. Meloetta going to look for the farm down, gets it, exits with the Hyper Beam loaded, and that's going to be a game winner. In comes Xerneas, no Protect Shields remaining, Hyper Beam takes the one-hit knockout, and man, it is an absolute joy to get to watch these Hyper Beams land. We move to the next match, and unfortunately that pesky Lunala lead has returned. This is so bad for Meloetta, because Meloetta is completely walled with this Psyshock Hyper Beam moveset. Opponent fires off a Moonblast, instant no shield from Meloetta, and we should see a pretty immediate pivot into the Reshiram. Reshiram is going to be answered with Palkia. Palkia not even building up to the Spatial Rend, just going to go for the Aqua Tail. They're hoping that an Aqua Tail will be no shielded, allowing them to keep switch, but the shield will actually come up. Reshiram returns fire with a Crunch. Crunch going to be no shielded. No Crunch debuff comes through. Unfortunately, the Dragon Breath will not do enough damage, and Palkia makes it to a second Aqua Tail. This is going to make this matchup very close. Reshiram very low, but not low enough, barely able to hang on and win switch advantage. Unfortunately, switch advantage was won at the expense of a shield. Opponent sends in Zekrom as their final Pokemon. Fusion Flare not going to do much, and there's a combo play as in comes Meloetta. Meloetta launching Psyshock. Zekrom puts up the shield. Meloetta making it to Psyshock number 2. The opponent did not send in Lunala. Lunala should be a complete wall, but instead they're just staying in with the Zekrom. Now they end up pivoting into Lunala, and this is pretty bad news for Meloetta. Meloetta farms up, bluffing a Dazzling Gleam that it does not have. That forces a Shadow Ball out of Lunala, and that was basically the perfect play. If Lunala had realized that it completely walled Meloetta's energy, it could have farmed down, exited with back-to-back Shadow Balls, and won the game instantly. But instead, they didn't realize it. That was a very nice bait call there by Kyurem, calling that it wasn't the Moonblast, only going to be the Shadow Ball. Fusion Flare will be shielded. In comes Zekrom, but I don't think Zekrom is going to get the farm down here. Zekrom fires off the Fusion Bolt. It's going to be a race, but oh my goodness. Kyurem barely hangs on, exits one off that Ice Burn, and the opponent is going to resign the match. Good lead in the next match, Meloetta into Xerneas. Opponent safe switches into Lunala. Meloetta staying in, farming up energy, hoping Lunala's gonna throw, but Lunala is never throwing. They farm up so much energy and finally unleash Moonblast. But this residual energy on Lunala is still gonna be a pretty big problem. Now in comes Reshiram, reaching for the Crunch, but unable to get there. Shadow Ball will do a pretty sizable amount of damage, but Reshiram will be able to hang on. Reshiram now going to go for the Fusion Flare. Fusion Flare should barely miss the knockout here. Lunala able to hang on, but all that does is give farm over to the Reshiram. Opponent sends in their own Reshiram looking for a farm down, and they do get it as the Crunch will not be able to be reached. There is so much energy stored on the Meloetta. Meloetta not going to go for the Hyper Beam. Baiting with the Psyshock. Opponent calls the bait, and that is absolutely heartbreaking. Psyshock number 2 is going to be shielded, and now it's all up to Kyurem to try and close out this game. Kyurem's going to be no shielding. Stone Edge comes out from the Reshiram, and suddenly, it's not all up to Kyurem. Kyurem would have been more than happy to take a Fusion Flare, but a Stone Edge is a very big problem. Fusion Flare lands, now it's all up to Meloetta. Can Meloetta potentially get a Confusion down? If yes, then this game could end in a win. Xerneas fires up the Moonblast. These confusions are adding up quite a bit. Xerneas makes a last-second charge attack, but the confusion that snuck through should knock out here if it's a close combat. It is. Meloetta exits with the back-to-back Psyshocks, and this game is going to be a win. Unfortunately, no Hyper Beam landing in this game, but we'll always take a win even if the Hyper Beam was not thrown. Double Psyshock takes down Reshiram and secures the win. Hopping to the final match, Meloetta into Xerneas one final time. Is the opponent going to stay in? Yes, they are. And this is everything. Meloetta farming up, trying to make it to the Hyper Beam, but before they can get there, Xerneas will fire off the Moonblast. Meloetta shrugs off the damage, reaching for Hyper Beam. There's a switch, and in comes Reshiram. Well, Xerneas won't get Hyper Beamed, but Reshiram definitely will. Hyper Beam lands, there's a switch into the mirror, and Reshiram is able to get the full farm down. Back in comes Xerneas, but Xerneas has already taken quite a lot of damage. It looks like that may have been an inadvertent throw on alignment there. Fusion Flare is going to be shielded. A Geomancy did sneak through, so that is a little bit unfortunate for the Reshiram. Reshiram going to be shielding right back, though, as Xerneas goes for the Moonblast, as the opponent is very, very close to Fusion Flare range. They fire off Close Combat. Close Combat will fail to take the knockout, but it will be getting this Reshiram very low. Reshiram crunches, covering for a catch, but no catch comes through. Instead, that damage is going to land. In the back is Ho-Oh, and this game is over. Ho-Oh is not a Pokemon that I believe in this Master League meta. Ho-Oh absorbs that crunch, no problem, and now in comes Kyurem White. Kyurem White gonna actually farm up and get a catch onto the Meloetta, fully sacrificing the Meloetta to the Sacred Fire. Undercharge comes through from the Ho-Oh, giving them 2 Incinerates of energy back, and suddenly, this game could get a little bit interesting. Well, it would, if Kyurem didn't have a bunch of residual energy. Kyurem gets the shield with the Fusion Flare. Shield comes up from Kyurem as Ho-Oh returns fire with the Sacred Fire. But Ho-Oh should still be 2 away from a move here. In comes Reshiram. Reshiram does not make it to the close combat, as Fusion Flare will take the knockout. And now the opponent gets to send back in the Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh hoping to get to a move, but they're not going to get there. Kyurem makes it to the Fusion Flare on charge attack priority, or it would have been charge attack priority. Opponent chooses not to throw their energy, and that's a good game. We got to talk about how rare it is to have an extra small shiny Meloetta at that, and then to have it be the extra small Shundo. This trainer mentioned they did end up bottle capping it, so they did end up maxing out the stats for Meloetta. And if you have a max Shundo extra small Meloetta, you may as well put Hyper Beam on it and take it into the Master League. Now, Hyper Beam definitely not the meta relevant moveset on this Pokemon, but it was very fun to see a lot of Pokemon that were usually very comfortable absorbing a Psy Shock get absolutely destroyed by Hyper Beam. I would like to see a Master League meta in which Meloetta had a bit more play. I think Meloetta is really nice into like the Xerneas, Reshiram, Zekrom teams, but it obviously struggles quite a bit against Lunala, and it basically can't really do anything into Zacian. So hopefully as Zacian usage continues to drop, then Meloetta will have a bit more play overall, because it is a very cool Pokemon and it has some pretty absurd stats. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.